present The Money Secret by John Fry with Jeff Bainham and Annabelle Spinks-Jones.
And, of course, we shouldn't forget the famous bit.
This is the head of a traitor!
Well, it is now.
The money changers didn't get on with either Charles II or James II, for obvious reasons. So, with a little underhandedness, they decided to back William of Orange from the Netherlands, who then took the throne of England in 1689. Over the next 50 years, England fights a succession of expensive wars with the government of the day forced to go on bended knee, begging the bankers for more and more money.
The truth is that all of these wars have left us a bit short. You don't happen to have anything down the back of the sofa, do you?
The vaults are a bit empty, are they? I know. How about this? A privately sanctioned central bank to help you out. Let's call it something that everyone will understand. Oh, I know. Let's give it a title that will give the impression that it belongs to the people of this great country. Let's call it the Bank of England.
And who actually does own it?
Don't worry about the details. I'll worry about the details, so you don't have to.
So, in 1694, that's what happened.
But the name suggests...
That it's part of the government?
Well, yes.
Deceptive, isn't it?
Now then, you know that £1,250,000 in gold coins you thought the bank should have?
Oh, yes. Well, the bank must stand on sound financial principles.
On what?
I said sound financial.
Oh, yes, that.
So, how much do you actually have?
The private investors, who were never revealed,
I told you I was the one worrying about that.
only put up £750,000.
Hey, what's £750,000 worth of gold amongst friends?
Clearly not very much.
Oh, well, never mind. I'm sure you know what you're doing.
You can bank on it.
One of the bank's directors, William Patterson, spelt it out perfectly.
The bank hath benefit of interest on all monies which it creates out of nothing.
That's a license to print money.
Quite literally.
But how could the debt from the 50 years of war ever be paid off?
Oh, that's easy, young lady. Just tax the people a bit. And then a bit more. And then a bit more. They'll soon get the idea. Oh, and by the way, while you're standing there, would you please be so kind as to hand me that big stick? The one with the notches all along the side. Good. Put that on the fire, would you? With all the others. We won't be needing those anymore.
That was money, you see, that the bankers didn't control, just as Henry I had intended.
Tally-ho! Get the checkbooks out.
In the first 4 years of the Bank of England's existence, the national debt went from £1.25 million to a massive £16 million. By lending out large amounts of money, the bank managed to devalue the currency in the hands of the population.
But how?
Well, the more money there is in circulation, Chloe, the higher the prices will rise to take account of it. The money the people did own would now have to be paid in taxes to service the very debt the bank had created. Then the bank simply restricted the amount of money available, sat back and waited for people to go bankrupt, take back their assets, and then start the whole process off again.
I suppose that's Britain for you.
Oh, it wasn't just little old Blighty. Let's take a look at those across the pond, to the colonies of what would one day become the United States of America.
Howdy there, partner.
Wrong period in history.
Oh, right. Where are we now?
Lexington, Massachusetts.
Why?
The colonies have been doing rather well of late. And when an official from the Bank of England asked Benjamin Franklin,
Hey, Benny boy, tell me why it is that you colonial chaps are doing so well over there in the New World.
Because we don't borrow money, dummy.
it was called colonial scrip, and they simply printed as much as they needed, no more, no less.
So what's the UK's reaction to that?
The Currency Act of 1764. Stop paying your bills with this colonial scrip thing. From here on in, we'll only accept taxes in gold or silver. Ha! Put that in your pipe and smoke.
Then what was the American reaction?
Unemployment and dissatisfaction. We have to get King George III and the international bankers off the necks of the colonists.
Well, you won't.
And how was this deadlock resolved?
1775, and it's war. To pay for the war, the colonists printed colonial scrip into worthlessness. So, come the end of it, the Continental Congress then approached Robert Morris, the financial superintendent, to open a privately owned central bank called the Bank of North America.
Which I'm guessing was a carbon copy of the Bank of England.
And equally started to lend out what it didn't have. Obviously, the debt of the war only continued to increase. William Findlay of Pennsylvania, of the Continental Congress, was the leading voice in trying to end the bank.
This is a disaster. The bank has no other desire than to enslave us all.
The colonial leaders tried to renounce the Articles of Confederation within the American Constitution. Thomas Jefferson was one of the many against the bank.
If you guys ever let the private bankers control the issuing of your money by inflation or deflation, they will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up in the streets of the land their forebears conquered. In other words, you'll be complete and utterly...
But sadly, those wise words were ignored. The US Constitution says nothing about the control of America's money. You could say this was the beginning of one rule for one and one rule for the many. As Mayor Amschel Rothschild might have said,
If I'm the one issuing or retracting the cash, what do I care what the law says and who says it?
1791 and a new bank. The first bank of the United States was chartered. One of the men behind it, Robert Morris, had said the previous year,
If the nation's debt is manageable, it will be fantastic for us. The nation will be paying us interest forever.
The first bank of the United States was exactly the same as the previous bank, and also lent out money it didn't have. Its name was to help hide from the people that it was a private group of men that now had control over them. By the bank. Turn right here. Let's take a look back at Europe for a moment. 1800 and France.
I'm not borrowing a penny from the Bank of France. I don't trust them. When the government is dependent on the financiers, it is the money changers that call the shots, and you can never give them enough. Ha! President Jefferson, whatever can I do for you today?
Here's $3 million worth of gold. I want to buy a considerable amount of land just west of the Mississippi River. Let's call it the Louisiana Purchase.
What shall I call it?
You can call it, I'll use the money to build up my army and go and conquer Europe. How does that sound?
I shall bring the nations of Europe together under one flag. Mine!
The Bank of England then lent out money to every nation that found itself in the eye of Napoleon. Nathan Rothschild smuggled gold through France to Spain to finance the Duke of Wellington, to take on the French leader. This conflict continues until 1815, when the British and French forces faced off at a place now famous forever, called Waterloo.
I've seen the film.
But did the film cover this?
Cover what?
There, that man.
He's not a soldier.
No, his name is Rothwell. He's waiting. just to see who wins the battle.
We've won!
And he's off.
He's going like a bat out of...
Rothwell gallops off to the Channel, getting back to London, or more importantly, the London stock market, a full day before word of the victory reached England. Nathan Rothschild looked downhearted, and then started to sell his consols, government bonds. Others saw this and then started selling their bonds. Then, slowly, he started to buy. These consols could be converted to stock in the Bank of England, therefore allowing Nathan and his heirs to take control of the British money supply.
Over my 17 years in England, I increased my wealth 2,500 times, from £20,000 to £50 million.
Everyone seems to love war, no matter how many suffer. I don't understand it.
Nothing makes a profit like war between nations, Chloe.
And the bankers back both sides, don't they?
Head over there, young Chloe, for it's time to return to America.
Can I do my howdy line now?
Nope, wrong place.
Where are we?
1832 US Congress.
Let me guess. Another privately owned central bank.
Back in 1816, the second bank of the United States had been chartered. After 12 years in operation, the bank had worked the American economy for its benefit, not that of the American people. A little-known senator from Tennessee stood for the presidency, Andrew Jackson.
Vote for me!
The bankers were not amused.
Give it a rest, Jackson. You haven't got a chance.
Then come the election.
The 7th President of the United States, Andrew Jackson.
Jackson got to work rooting out 2,000 employees that worked for the government and 11,000 from the federal government that had sympathy with the bank. In 1832, when the bank's charter was up for renewal, the Congress, this place, voted to do just that. But the president vetoed the bill.
You got to be kidding me. More than $8 million of stock in this central bank are owned by people that live beyond our shores. The nation's money supply is therefore practically controlled by foreign interests. That financial control of our own economy is ultimately more dangerous to our democracy than that of a military threat.
He then restands for the presidency on a campaign slogan of
Jackson and no bank.
What did the bankers do?
Give his opponent more than $3 million to stop Jackson in his tracks. Give the money to Henry Clay's campaign.
And the result?
a landslide.
Re-elected President Andrew Jackson.
Jackson started to remove government money from the Second Bank of the United States. Two of his secretaries of the Treasury refused to carry out his order, so he...
You're fired!
Head of the bank, Nicholas Biddle, threatened to cause a depression if the bank was not rechartered.
If this president thinks because he fought Indians that he can now do as he pleases with this bank, he is dead wrong. And my daddy is bigger than his daddy. If he thinks he can mess with us, we'll mess with him. Call in those loans. Don't issue any new ones.
America fell into a deep depression.
I can feel quite down myself sometimes.
Not that kind of depression, Chloe.
Oh, my mistake.
It's all the fault of President Jackson.
In 1835, Jackson was censured by Congress for taking funds out of the Second Bank of the United States by 26 votes to 20. The president responded to the money changers.
You are a den of vipers, and by the grace of the eternal God, I will rout you out.
Biddle, however, was caught in public saying,
We're gonna crash the U.S. economy big time. Cheers.
But things changed on April the 4th of that year, when the House of Representatives voted 134 to 82 against the rechartering of the bank. The bank's charter ran out in 1836, and by 1838, President Jackson pays off the final installment of the national debt.